You're listening to Honey, We Made a Disney Podcast. Two friends since Justin Timberlake rocked frosted tips in a Canadian tuxedo, now guides on your nostalgic tour of Disney history, one magical film at a time. I'm Eddie Ferguson.
And I'm JB Waggoner. And on today's episode, we head for the second star to the right, then straight on till morning as we review Peter Pan.
So fasten that safety restraint and pull up on the yellow strap. It's time to open the vault.
Cue that Disney-est sound effect. Peter Pan, Eddie. One of the 30 adaptations for us to look at today.
Adaptations of Peter
Pan.
Yeah.
How many of the, I just looked through a list. By the way, there was a top 10 list of best, the ranking best ones. I was like, wow, there's been 10 movies. And this isn't like a movie that, this isn't a story that was in public domain right away. It kind of had to go through its normal process too. It's not like some of the older stories we see where we're getting that story again. This was there's a lot of these movies, but yeah, only one Disney, only two Disney films as of from 1953 when this came out, and then just last year 2023 when we got the most recent one starring Jude Law. Should we rank?
You're not counting 2002's runaway hit Return to Neverland?
Return to Neverland?
With Jane?
With Jane? Why? How did I miss this? Return to...
And they didn't suggest it to you as soon as you...
This was... Oh my gosh. You mean the sequel that's Don't
you remember the early 2000s? They made direct to VHS... Everything. Cinderella. I mean, you name it. They did every one of them. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if we can get into some sequels later, but so yeah. This is one of the many ones. The original, I didn't know this when doing my investigative research, that you always wonder, where does the story come from? Does it come from a book? Does it come from other things? Action figures, was just looking at how the He-Man started off as an action figure first, then became an animated series. Anyways, Transformers. This was it started off as a play by J.M. Barrie. These are stories he told to his kids, and he turned that into a play. They then adapted that to a novel 7 years later. But yeah, this started off as an actual play. I don't know if it hit Broadway right away. That kind of took a little bit of time. But a play, I think this is one of our first that has started there. We've had Newsies that started off as a movie and became a play. A lot of other films that became plays. But yeah, this is a very unique one.
Have you never seen Finding Neverland?
Finding Neverland, that's the one I've been trying to remember. With
Johnny Depp.
Oh, that one's
and
so
Kate
good.
Winslet.
So good.
Yeah. That chronicles, I don't know how historically accurate it is, but the creation of Peter Pan.
It's pretty fantastic though. It didn't feel like a biopic by any means.
No, it's been a while since I've watched it.
Me too, yeah.
And what's funny is we've been going through some of the old DVDs. Those for those of you young kids listening, these were these plastic discs that we used to have to put into a player in order to watch movies.
Yeah.
And as I taught JB a few weeks ago, if there's a scratch that won't allow you to play, you can just rub chapstick on it, polish it in, and boom, you're off to the races. We've been going through these, I keep flipping past Mike. I have a copy of Finding Neverland in my old DVD binder, and I've been wanting to watch it. Then after we watched this movie, all I could think about was, I have to watch Finding Neverland, have to crack open this Freddie Highmore, Johnny Depp, Kate Winslet. There's a couple other big ones in there. It's a fantastic
I just remember the
movie,
shot on the bench. The shot on the bench is in my head. I remember crying watching it. Maybe that's why I haven't watched it again, because it was a crying movie. And how often are you in the mood for a good cry? You are all the time, but just on cue, you're ready for it. I do love that you're just owning your Enneagram after you hated being labeled. I love that you were just offering that to the world now.
To a certain degree, it's helpful because it just shortcuts a lot of like painful people trying to figure you out. It's like, you're odd, you're weird, you're complex.
You're weird.
Just let me be. Just let me be.
Oh, goodness.
But yes, it is based off a play. And I should have grabbed the name. He left the rights to a children's hospital there in London. And so all royalties help funded this children's hospital until it entered public domain.
Yeah, it's right up in the front of the film. I had never caught that before, but it says Walt Disney Productions is grateful to the Hospital for Sick Children in London, to which Sir James M. Barrie gave his copyright for Peter Pan. Mm-hmm. I had never
Which is interesting how what Disney had to do. He had to get his hands on the copyright, but the problem was Paramount had purchased the rights for a live action Peter Pan. They had the rights to that. And somehow it was uncertain whether or not those rights covered an animation version of Peter Pan or not. And so Disney had gone straight to the hospital to request, the rights to be able to make an animated film. And they turned him over to Paramount and said, you figured out with him. And so Disney actually had to negotiate the rights to make this with Paramount Pictures.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. I had no idea. Did they gouge them for everything they could, or they say, sure, why not? We'll play.
I don't know. I couldn't find anything on like exact amounts or anything like that, but if only they would have known that they were handing over what would become one of Disney's most recognizable films.
Yeah, so let's talk about let's talk about the movie. Any specific memories for you that it cued immediately, Eddie? Back to childhood, back to better days, maybe current days, maybe last week when you watched it, because you watch this every week.
I do love this movie, and it would be one that I would, of all the kind of the Disney animation movies, one that I've seen so often that I honestly I can't even count. And there's something about even just those opening sequences in the nursery and with Nana and Wendy and Mr. Darling and like all of those just kind of things that just immediately envelop me in nostalgia. That those scenes are as much as I think that what was interesting as I was watching this is I didn't realize it would be those particular scenes, like the opening, that kind of triggered that so quickly. If you ask me about Peter Pan, like I think of, the Mermaid Lagoon or the Lost Boys treehouse or like the epic pirate fight at the end, like those are the types of things that that jump into your mind. But for whatever reason, when I watched it this time, I was like, oh wow, no, this grabs you from the beginning and is like you're intrigued by these characters and you want to know what they're going on, and then you head off to Neverland and you're never the same.
Well, even in the narration right up at the front, where he said, I actually stopped it multiple times so I could write it down. All this has happened before, and it will all happen again, but this time it happened in London. It's just a very curious way to say that. It's like we are then coming upon a story that's already been happening multiple times.
I believe that is a direct quote.
I would believe it. It's very intriguing. It like pulls you in right away. It's a line that I hadn't necessarily paid attention to before.
I have our copy I can run and grab it. I should have had it at the ready, here to go.
I mean, we're sitting here waiting. Why don't you do it? But then from there, even as he leaves, Eddie is running away, and now we're just left here by ourselves for me to narrate the nothingness that is dead air as he just goes and runs away, and he's still gone. Oh, there's a loud bang. I don't know if that'll make it on the final version, but here we are.
I've got it right here, folks. And this is a lovely copy of J.M. Barrie's Peter Pan. I'm a little out of breath.
Is it from the play, or is it the novelization? What are we talking about, Eddie?
No, it is the novelization. Yes, but... Oh, here we go. The Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital. There you go. But the copyright expired in 1987. There you go. So I've got my copy right here. What do we want to look up? What do we want to know?
That line. All this has happened before, and it will happen again, but this time it happened in London.
It's not in this version.
Okay. Well,
we dive
all of that for nothing.
All of that for nothing.
Great. Golly. Thanks, Eddie.
I've got it here for future reference.
This is going to be a very interesting podcast. Yeah, I think it's very interesting. You're already seeing from an interesting vantage point, kind of peering in through the window of this family. Then you've got Peter coming in through the window, like we're following his story in. It's just a very different way to go about the story versus just right in the middle. You're almost being told about each of the characters beforehand. I love that they called Wendy the chief authority on all things Peter Pan. She's at this very interesting age where she's about to move out of childhood. It's her last hurrah, the last evening that she's there. Even the way that they treat Nana. She says, Nana, being a dog, kept her opinions to herself and regarded the whole thing with a sort of tolerance. It's like, but that, so when Mr. Darling, George Darling comes in, and I always forget that it's the same voice actor for him and Hook. That's played up big in the 2003 version of Peter Pan that came out, played by Jonathan Isaacs. He plays both characters. That's a
long-standing tradition from the opening of the play, that you always have the same actor play Mr. Darling as you have Mr. Hook, Captain Hook.
But I do love the random quote from this movie that our family uses all the time and adapts it based on the situation is poor Nana. Like we use that, like poor buddy, poor mama, poor dada. Like it's the thing that we say probably more than anything. It's the most random quote about the dog. Probably it's because of my love for dogs so much that, it just like oozes out. I gotta do
love
that
for dogs.
Yeah. But yeah, I think this movie is a very strong opening act to just get you in, and they play it so literally and so like, oh, this is normal. Like, oh, he's here. I'm sewing his foot up, and then they're gonna go run off to Neverland, and they remember, oh, we don't really know how to fly. Oh, it's pretty simple actually if you think about it. And then they figure it out as they go, and then they head off to Neverland. It's a really strong opener.
Well, and then you have, I would argue, man, at least top 3 most iconic opening sequences of a Disney movie, with them flying over the streets of London. I know at least I keep talking about like sequences that Disney just like puts in every like promotional video and stuff, like those sizzle reels, like them flying over London onto Big Ben. All of that is like
tally-ho.
Everywhere. Yeah. And it, and rightly so, like there's something so wistful and optimistic, and you feel the adventure brewing and building. And I would even say most versions or adaptations of of Peter Pan, that whole sequence is probably some of my favorite parts of the movie. Though I can't speak to Peter and Wendy, the new one, because, well, I haven't seen it, and everybody knows my opinions and thoughts on that.
It was the sequel we didn't ask for.
The one with Jacob Isaacs, that one is so good. That opening flying sequence, I think I've mentioned that on here. The soundtrack to that movie and that particular moment of them flying over London, I listen to all the time and on repeat. Good old James Newton Howard.
Shout out to fan of the podcast, Michaela Graham, who forced me to
2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
Shout outs.
Forced me to listen or watch that movie. Like literally handed me the DVD and said, you have to go watch this. And had to give her a full treatise on my thoughts about the movie and et cetera, which I won't give here. But that is why Peter Pan's on the top of my mind, at least in the past year when I had to watch that film. I mean, we've gone this long. We haven't talked about we haven't really delved into Captain Hook yet. Eddie, how do you want to go about talking about Captain Hook? He has to be one of the best bad guys, right?
Has to be. Yeah. Well, what's fun is like you see that Captain Hook is just ruthless and just conniving,
shoots the
evil
guy for playing music.
Yes. So I was watching this with the kids, and Lewis looks up at me during that sequence and just goes, "Did he just shoot him?" I was like,
"He's that bad."
And Lewis goes, "But why? Did he not like his music?" And I'm like, "No, he's a really bad guy." He was just
That's funny.
What? Yeah, so I mean, you get sequences like that, but then you have these other moments where he's just goofy and zany. He pulls back character. Just a tad from being, pure evil. So it's I don't know, a little more believable, or you care for him a little bit more. Yeah, he's a fantastic bad guy. Just such a caricature. He's so much larger than life, which is what makes a good villain. It needs to be flamboyant.
Well, he's so evil, which is what you need. He has a little bit of a backstory that makes sense, like him losing his hand and it being fed to the crocodile, and now it makes sense why he would hate Peter Pan so much. It's not just some random obsession. Like, it comes from a real place. I think that helps with it. And also, he's like deeply flawed in the sense of, well, one, his obsession gets the better of him, and as his crew is bemoaning, why can't we just get back on the open sea? But then also, he is flawed in the sense he's so terrified of that crocodile that it makes him apoplectic, can't even function. So you got the two things, incredible fear and incredible anger driving him at any moment, which that just makes him, and he's obviously flamboyant as well. So mix all that together. That's how we get this very interesting Captain Hook. It's a very specific type of Captain Hook that of pirates. We just recently came off of talking about pirates recently from Treasure Island and how that set a very specific look. And then this kind of there's a special way that we understand Captain Hook to be, and just the pirate missing, it's another pirate missing a limb. So yeah.
Well, you could see, to jump in on just kind of the pirate aspect of it, you can definitely see the pirate persona developing, having looked at Treasure Island and now Peter Pan, and then, knowing we're less than a decade from receiving Pirates of the Caribbean, the ride. It's like, oh, okay, I can see where
this is an obsession for Disney.
and it's and they kind of create this styling or stereotype for pirates. But One last thing on Captain Hook. I can't get enough of Captain Hook and the crocodile and those chase sequences. I belly laughed out loud when Hook does like a stone skipping across the ocean, and you hear him, just going like something about that just got me so tickled. I thought it was hysterical. And the animation in that sequence is so good. Like, you just have to stop and appreciate. This is hand drawn, cell by cell. They're animating all of that physicality. And there is so much physicality in those sequences with Hook and the crocodile and the chases and everything that you just, I don't know. I had greater appreciation for it, where I'm going, even if this was just live action, this is great and I'm really enjoying this. But like knowing that some guy painstakingly drew each cell of that, like, whoa, like I just love it even more.
So this movie is definitely a boy movie through and through, all the way to the end. Like, if you just think about all of the setups and the different things like flying,
the Lost Boys.
Like the Lost Boys. So we got the Lost Boys, which I didn't know where they came from. And if you go look at some of the history of the play, those Lost Boys were technically boys who their mothers or maids had like lost track of their stroller for 5 seconds, a minute, whatever, and then they fell out of the stroller. That was an interesting find of like where they technically came from. But you got the Lost Boys, they got the hideout, the no moms allowed, like no one has any mothers. You got pirates and Native Americans, and you've got cannons being shot everywhere. I'm trying to think of like a more boy film that Disney would have done at this time. Maybe it's because they've had too many hits, a lot of hits of Cinderella and Beauty and the Beast, like Snow White. And they just felt like, oh, we gotta do something here. Maybe that's why we've had a bunch of pirate movies, back like in a close proximity. But one of the things I find interesting is the interaction between the girls in this movie and Peter Pan. Because they are every single one of them that are on screen, besides Wendy's actual mother, all of them are like,
darling.
All of them are obsessed with Peter, and they are jealous and bickering between them. Tinkerbell and Wendy, the mermaids and Wendy, and Tiger Lily, and they're all like constant, like that's where some of the most intense drama in this kind of like the interpersonal drama comes from this. But he is like aloof the entire time. And I don't know whether that's like odd, strange, or exactly what being a young boy is like. Of like the girls, they have grown up
oblivious.
They have grown up to be stronger relationally and have that connection earlier on in life. And boys are just out trying to fight each other and play games and completely unaware. And that's a much later like process for them to go through maturity. But it was just so fascinating to watch this and go like, to watch the girls in this movie, like so much drama between them. And some of it's really great. Like Tinkerbell herself is one of the best characters in this movie. And the choice to make her, I think the word is pantomime, like she doesn't actually talk, but it just uses her like physicality for it. She's and she drives the story. Like without her, there isn't. They go, they have fun, maybe they head home early, but she's a major catalyst of this film and why it's so good. And she is one of the most iconic characters that were created from this movie.
I would say she is the most iconic character created from this movie, and maybe even go as far as to say, like, outside of Mickey Mouse, like the second most recognizable Disney character ever created.
More than Jiminy Cricket?
I mean, who opened the Wonderful World of Disney every week? It was Tinkerbell, like, how many... I think still at Disneyland, like Tinkerbell flies over the castle. I know, like at Walt Disney World, like every fireworks show, Tinkerbell flies over the castle.
Pixie dust.
Yeah, pixie dust. Like that is synonymous with anything Disney, is this idea of, even they put up a construction wall, they have a sign that says "Pardon our pixie dust."
Mm-hmm.
It's like everywhere that concept of her, is just infiltrated the company.
Which is funny because her outside of this film, in this film, she is cantankerous, she's jealous, she is like coming at Wendy all the time, is the reason that they find his hideout. Like her character in this is very specific, but then everywhere outside,
she's the foil.
Everywhere outside of this film is a completely different, like she's this amazing fairy that comes in and sprinkles pixie dust on you. And even the entire animated series, Tinkerbell, she's like a completely different character than the Tinkerbell that's in this movie. It's like night and day difference. Unless you're going to say, oh, she had a change of heart and then she becomes it's like, no, like what we understand and what we enjoy about her in this film is completely opposite, I would probably even say, than every other interpretation of her outside of this film. Am I making sense? Do you feel that too?
No, it's funny that yes, you're right. I don't think I would have put all that together until you started saying that. But it makes sense because, I mean, her role in this film is very much to be kind of the foil, the one that increases the drama, and that cantankerous attitude. I don't think you want too much of it. Right? Like it kind of, it can get annoying really fast. You're totally right though. It's interesting that outside of Peter Pan persona, the park persona, the TV persona, totally different. I just think of, seeing her like at a parade. She's always the like hyper,
they Mickey-fied her.
Like
they Mickey-fied her.
Yeah, for sure.
If I can use that phrase.
It's just like, hyper, just so, pixie. I don't know. I do love that you were so quick to make an analysis to the TV series. I know that you're a big fan of Pixie Hollow and all the other fairies. But to jump out here so quickly and just boldly share that with everybody, that was really brave.
Well, my wife would tell a funny story about how early on when we were dating or engaged, I was over at her parents' house and they were watching her nieces, and they had the show on. They had the show on, and they were like maybe 3, 4, some years old, and a bunch of us were just sitting down watching, and all the women left, and then they came back later, and all of us dudes were just sitting there by ourselves, no kids. The show was still going on, and we were emotionally invested in the story still of the characters and what was happening, and was she going to meet her twin and all this other stuff. And I was surprised at how much character development you could put in a Tinkerbell show.
And I've always been, I've not seen any of these, so you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong here, since you're the expert.
Since I'm the expert.
The fact that she's called Tinkerbell is because she's a tinker fairy, that she tinkers, like makes little things. Thought that was very clever, very interesting.
Very clever.
Any other characters worth mentioning, worth throwing out there? We haven't brought up Smee,
which
arguably one of the best sidekicks.
Definitely, there's not another character like him that I can even think of.
Anywhere.
Very unique character. Yeah. I love that they in the 2023 version, I just kind of skimmed it to just see if I even remembered seeing any of it. Jim Gaffigan plays Shmi in the 2023 version, if that's a reason for you to then go maybe check it out. But no, he is cool. He's like, even just the way it sounds like he's talking with marbles in his mouth or something. And he's such a likable, even when he like kidnaps her, it's not vicious by any means. Yeah, he's such a very unique. I would love to know like what drew and how is he the same in the play, in the book, or is this like a Disney character? But it feels very different than other characters.
He is very he's got some great lines, but he's also got a great just kind of physical humor to him. Mm-hmm. Honestly, one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie, and I remember this so distinctly as a kid, finding it hysterical, and then Lewis and I were laughing at it together when it happens, when he shaves the bird's butt instead of Hook's face. It's just so stupid but funny and simple. Yeah. It's fantastic.
Yeah. The music. Do you wanna take some moment to talk about the music in this? Your favorite tunes or moments music wise, or?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have the
so we've got You Can Fly. We've got Following the Leader. Yeah, I mean, you can. Your Mother and Mine, which I had completely forgotten about that one.
I had too. I had totally forgotten about Your Mother and Mine.
The Elegant Captain Hook.
Yeah, so I mean, you've got the opening one with the second star to the right, which is just a very classic Disney. It just feels very classy Disney. You Can Fly, again, quintessential Disney movies. You've got A Wish Upon a Star, A Dream is a Wish Your Heart Makes, and You Can Fly. Like, these just feel like, if I'm going to make a quick Disney montage, we've got to make sure we hit that one and put all that in there. Following the Leader, we sing on a weekly basis in our house. Like we play this game, and the kids want to take turns, especially if we go out hiking or something. We let like the different kids take turns leading, and they inevitably start singing the song and going about all of that. I mean, we get a cultural insensitivity warning at the beginning of this movie, and I'm assuming that's because of the song "What Made the Red Man Red,"
which I had never listened to the actual lyrics of it before.
Yeah.
I'd just been like, wow, I can't believe this song exists, and it existed for a really long time. But the thesis is, the answer to the question, what makes a red man red, being a young man approached a girl and blushed, and they've been went away. Wow, where did this come from? Where did the song originate? And honestly, a lot of the interactions with the Native Americans in this is just like, wow, like they couldn't make this nowadays. I'm surprised every time they keep making a new version of Peter Pan and going, okay, how do you get around this and this and these? There's a lot of weird, like I think most of the interactions with the Native Americans is odd and strange. They're playing games, but then you took Tiger Lily, so we're keeping him. Oh, another woman that wants to be with Peter, or actually she's the most put off by Peter, I guess, to some degree. Yeah. It is the most problematic part of an otherwise awesome film, with so many other things that I'm like, wow. Well, but this was the time. And it goes back to just the childhood boys of like just having a very like playing Indians and playing pirates and playing all those things. It goes down to the most stereotypical of any of that, because it's just kids being kids. But
yeah. So I would say, I mean, this what's interesting is that this movie has a couple of like key songs that really stand out and have kind of move to the upper echelons of Disney music. But at the same time, if you were to be like, hey, like, what are some of the movies with the best Disney music? This doesn't come up in your brain at all. You know, like this isn't what you wouldn't. I mean, it's definitely not a musical in that sense, even though that there are, quite a few musical sequences. But yeah, you do have one, maybe two that just are quintessential Disney music.
What any other parting thoughts that you have, Eddie, for this film? Memories, feelings? Did you ever dress up as Peter Pan yourself? I remember myself having the felt hat, the felt like green hat with the feather in the cap at some point in my life. Probably went as Peter Pan for Halloween, but did you ever costumes or anything like that?
I don't remember going as Peter Pan. I'd have to ask my mother. I wouldn't be surprised if I did because, like I had said, I mean, this was one that I listened to or watched quite a bit. No, I would say just overall, for me, this gets to this kind of classic opening era of Disney animation, just the style of animation and then the color. When I think of kind of quintessential Disney animation style during this period, I think of this and Cinderella. And it's interesting because it's pretty much the same crew, art direction crew. You've got Mary Blair, Claude Coates, John Hench. And these are all ones they're only going to do about one more movie for Disney before they're totally taken up into producing the parks. And in many ways, this is the last one that they do before Disney pulls them full into working on Disneyland. So yeah, there's a big part of that I appreciate the animation style and all of that. This film is also the last for a couple of kind of key milestones in Disney history. This is the last film in which all 9 members of the Disney's 9 Old Men, kind of the original Disney animators that were so well known for everything that we've talked about up to this point, they were the core of Disney animation. This is the last film in which all 9 members worked together as directing animators. Many of them, most of them stay with the company. They just start to move into other roles or, working on separate projects. But this is the last one where they all work together in this. The other thing, this is the final animated feature released through RKO Pictures. After Peter Pan, Disney founds its own distribution company, which is a big shift for the company. To be able to kind of own that from top to bottom.
This is also reused a lot of recent characters or actors. So we've got Bobby Driscoll, who was in several films with
Song
Disney.
of the South, Treasure Island. Yeah, he voices Peter Pan, which makes it the first time ever that a male actor portrayed Peter Pan.
Yeah.
The tradition that was set forth by J.M. Barrie in the first, stage production was that Peter Pan was always played by a woman. And Bobby Driscoll was the first time a male has ever portrayed Peter Pan.
We also we kind of alluded to this last week, but Wendy was voiced by the same actress who was in Alice in Wonderland, who did Alice, that very iconic voice in back-to-back films and like key roles, not just like, oh, the serpent or whatever, but like the lead role or one of the lead roles in these past 2 films.
We also, I think it's interesting, we almost had a very famous person, Cary Grant, voice Captain Hook. That is who Disney wanted. He actually sat down with Cary Grant and tried to get him to voice Hook, which would have been huge. I mean, that's like the equivalent of getting like a Tom Cruise nowadays to voice a character. But in the end, it is Hans Conried who voices Captain Hook, which is good because I think the voice of Captain Hook has now, like, it's not a person, right? Like it kind of goes into that echelons of like a Winnie the Pooh type voice or a Mickey Mouse type voice, where it's so recognizable, just for Captain Hook.
Yep. Well, before we get to your around the Disney parks and how it's infiltrated everything there, which we've already talked a little bit, I do want to shout out. It's not a Disney film, but Hook from 1991 with Robin Williams. I would say that it's its own film, like loosely connected because it's a sequel, I guess technically. But man, what an amazing movie. Just so, I mean, it's Robin Williams at his finest, doing his finest work. It's definitely one of the best adaptations of this story, hands down. We've talked about Finding Neverland and Tinkerbell, but man, Hook is definitely on its own one of the best. I remember watching that as a kid several times and just being so enthralled. It was such a great way to bring it into live action. Rufio, can't forget about Rufio. Uh-huh. Glenn Close's amazing cameo in it is just awesome. For 2 seconds.
Dustin Hoffman as Captain Hook, Julia Roberts as Tinkerbell. Mm-hmm. You've got Maggie Smith, who plays Granny Wendy in that. It's a fantastic movie. And we're not mentioning the fact that it was directed by Steven Spielberg himself.
Yep.
So good. Yeah, I mean, I think that's it's so fantastic about Peter Pan is it created its world creation, right? Like it created this place, Neverland. It just opens the imagination, this idea of perpetual childhood and the wonder and the awe that comes from a child's eyes. I mean, J.M. Barrie created such a lush, imaginative world in all of this. Disney definitely kind of helps expand all of that. But I think there's a reason why there's so many adaptations and also like so many really good adaptations. Like we've mentioned just 4 right off the top throughout all of this. And, I think that speaks to the source material of like how rooted and how well founded this idea of any person not wanting to let go of childhood, of kind of wanting to go back to that, what we remember as the simpler times, longing for that boyhood adventure and just kind of roughhousing and kind of going out with the friends
secret
and doing
hideouts.
Stupid stuff. Yeah, like those are all things that immediately stir in me a sense of boyhood and innocence.
So now
and Hook definitely captures that too. So I'm glad you brought that up.
So here we are, Eddie. Your favorite part. Tell us all the different ways that you can experience elements of Peter Pan at the parks. Take us around the parks, Eddie.
Well, I mean, we mentioned probably my favorite is Tinkerbell flying over the castle. That is my favorite part of what's the kind of the current big fireworks show at the Magic Kingdom, Happily Ever After. Like at the very end, when they sing a little bit of I Can Fly and like Tinkerbell flies out of the castle and flies over the Magic Kingdom. Like, I mean, it just, like everybody, who's a big Disney nerd starts tearing up and the kids are amazed by it and everything. It's just such a iconic moment. And you can meet Tinkerbell, Peter Pan, Hook, and Smee also appear as characters throughout the parks everywhere. And there's a lot of nods and references. But I think the most significant presence of Peter Pan in the parks is the ride Peter Pan's Flight, where you actually board a pirate ship, fly over London, and then off to Neverland. It is in every castle park except Hong Kong. So you can see it in Disneyland, Magic Kingdom, Disneyland Paris, and Tokyo Disneyland, and Shanghai. But for whatever reason, they didn't put it in Hong Kong. And in every single one of those parks, it is one of the most in-demand high wait times.
Yes.
In part because of its popularity, but also because it has really low ride capacity. Like there's just not, it's like several hundred instead of several thousand. Pirates or Haunted Mansion can push thousands of people through that ride in an hour. Peter Pan is really limited. It is just a couple hundred that it can get through. So it kind of elevates it, makes it feel like it's in even greater demand. But it's always one of the longest waits.
Every time we go to Fantasyland, it is because you've got Snow White's area, you got Mr. Toad, you've got the carousel, you've got all these different rides. And without a doubt, it's always the longest of all of the rides. And there's a lot of times where I'm like, is this even worth continuing to go through this? And then you go on it and you're happy you did. But it is by far the longest wait of any of those classic old park rides.
Yeah. But it's a fantastic ride. I enjoy it. It is my sister's favorite ride in all of Disney World. So I just have like fond memories of like
flying over London.
Yeah. And I mean, us like rushing to get to it and to be able to go on it. So, yeah, I mean, it's got one of the most iconic rides in all of Disney parks as well. So I think that's a pretty well represented film.
Well, here we are, Eddie. We're ready to rate this. Are you emotionally prepared to rate this movie?
Deep breath. Here we go. It's a 5 for me. Like, this is essential. Like, there's no him-hawing around this one. Like, I think if you were to be like, okay, quick, you gotta pick your top 10 Disney movies, I'm gonna have to find a reason for this to not be in it.
I have to fight you to not put it in the top 10.
In my top 10.
In your top 10. I would agree as well. It's not just a classic. It is a purely essential film. For all the reasons that we've talked about, is the essence of boyhood and that transition from childhood to needing to move on and to grow up. And it is kind of sad in that regards, because they go through all this journey and then she goes back and she's going to grow up, but it's the nature of life. That's why it's happening over and over and over again. Like they open up in the beginning. So I would agree. This is a number 5 out of 1 through 5. We're going to go 5, essential. But now that you are filled up on your nostalgia, a little bit of Disney news, including news that dropped mere hours after we recorded last week, would have led the Disney news section last time, but here we are a week later. Sorry, you probably already know what we're talking about. It's that they've done the most obvious thing in all of Star Wars to say they're going to give us a Mandalorian and Grogu movie. Was this the most easiest thing they could have done? Like, most obvious thing to just make fans happy?
Yes. Yeah. I have to be honest, though. I mean, this is so sad. Like, I don't like being a cynical person, but like my first reaction was cynical. I'm like, yeah, but how many Disney Star Wars movies have we been announced? You know, like, oh, so and so's doing one. Oh, we're gonna do this.
Crew,
it's like, all, and you're like, it's
Squad Battalion
canceled, or it's been like on this indefinite pre-production cycle. You know, it's just like, I don't know. Like I loved seasons 1 and 2, and I loved the mini season in the middle of Boba Fett, whatever we want to call that.
The Boba Fett couple years.
Episodes.
Season 3 wasn't that. No.
Season 3 was a big disappointment. Really big disappointment. So yeah, like seeing that, I'm going, yes. I mean, I love the style of an old Western gunslinger in the Star Wars universe. So if we get like a Tombstone style film, a good Clint Eastwood style film, but it's Star Wars. Like if they just really lean into that, I will be really happy. That is what I am hopeful for. If we get another J.J. Abrams Lens Flare vomit fest, I may have to walk out.
I just realized sitting here going, we've never been able to see The Mandalorian in all of its glory in a theater. Like it's always been watching it at home. Like that's what I'm excited about, because we need reasons. We need the excuse to go to the movie theater. We always
like, I've got nothing down here right now. I was like, my wife even put on our calendar, like, Eddie needs to go to the movies like today or tomorrow.
You didn't hit up Migration? Migration didn't pull you out to the theater?
Well, so it's an animated film, so it's dubbed. Like, unless you grabbed it in the first week, I couldn't get it in English, and I just don't like going and seeing movies in Spanish that much. I will, but not that much. So, especially Migration. Everybody's talking about that movie. Now you're bringing it up.
My kids loved it.
Because it's the only one that came out, right?
Well, it's great when it's the only one out at one point, because then it just rakes in all the money. But so, speaking of raking in money or not raking in money, we've been bemoaning the box office for all of the Disney movies, and some of their chickens are coming to roost, or whatever the saying is, because it just got announced that Pixar is in the middle of some layoffs. So they are downsizing to some degree, probably because their movies, even though they are slow builds, and it looks like Wish, or I guess that's Disney animation. But they're having to lay off some people.
Elio got pushed, right? Yep. So Pixar's going down to just one movie a year. They reportedly are, and this is Newsweek who's reporting this, 20% of Pixar's workforce is about to get laid off.
Wow. It's a lot.
And that's a lot. And I mean, this isn't the first time Pixar got hit. If you remember last year, Disney as a whole let go of over 7,000 jobs. And some of those did come out of Pixar. You know, no area of Disney was immune from that. Probably what they're saying is the biggest chunk of that, it will be like a Disney Plus department that they brought up to work specifically on Disney Plus content. So they're gonna, probably just let go of that whole entire division of Pixar. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm sad, but I'm also hopeful, because it's like, hey, if you want to get back on track, like, yeah, you're gonna have to make really tough decisions. You're gonna have to do some fairly extreme things. And if this is what's necessary for us to kind of get back to some classic Pixar storytelling and different things, okay, but I haven't been a huge fan of some of the Disney Plus specific content. Monsters at Work, like, we barely made it through the second episode. Like, my kids didn't even like it. We are huge fans of the Pixar shorts. We watch those all the time. But I mean, those were coming out before Disney Plus. Yeah. I think there was a cute series with Doug Wasn't that kind of a Disney Plus specific show? That was good. That was okay, you know. But we'll see, you know, what this brings about.
Speaking of animation, I'm sure your house was watching all of the new Bluey episodes. Not new to America, but new nonetheless. Additional Bluey episodes dropped this week, and we've watched all of them multiple times.
Yes, we have watched all the new episodes. I want to say at least 4 times. Yeah, I mean, we have a tradition now of like when the new episodes drop, the kids just want to sit and binge them right away. And we're like, no, this is a family affair. We sit, like we make it, you know, kind of a big deal. Pop some popcorn.
You want to enjoy them too.
Yeah, I love them. And we've gotten my niece and nephews so hooked on it, they are older, 15, 12, and 11. They all slept over in my nephew's room and had like a Bluey premiere sleepover party because they're so hooked on it too. And like we called them, like the cousins had a big phone call the next morning, and we were swapping what our new episode is, our new favorite episodes are. So is there a favorite in the Waggoner household? Is there a favorite episode that has just risen to the top?
I know that they really enjoyed TV Store or TV Shop.
Yeah.
That one was definitely one that they enjoyed watching. I'm trying to pull it back up just to remind myself. The one with the kid with Rusty and the dad and the baseball, like that one was definitely very heartfelt. But I'm trying to pull it up right now so I can kind of see. But what were your favorites?
The big favorite in the Ferguson household is Cubby. And we have now created a new game that our kids love to do, and that is pull all the cushions and blankets from all around the house and create a maze of cubbies throughout our living room. We are obsessed over that episode. It is a little scary, to be honest with you.
Dragon
is a big one
really
too.
Good.
Yeah, that's a little tearjerker moments too in there.
I love the different animating style and how, and all their different variations as they're going through the story.
Yeah. So if you haven't checked it out, there are several new Bluey episodes on Disney Plus. If you've not watched Bluey, you're missing it. You're sleeping on this. This is
or you probably fantastic. Don't have kids,
or you don't have kids. And even if you don't have kids, you should watch this because they're fantastic.
If you don't have kids, you've for sure had a parent come tell you, I know you don't have kids, but you should watch this.
But you should watch this because these are really good. I've cried, man. I've cried over Bluey. Disney has to do something more with Bluey. It is the number one viewed piece of content on Disney Plus. It is. Yes. Why is there not like a Bluey puppet show or something in the parks, or, you know, give us a meet and greet, pay these people whatever they want. You will make it back.
I do wonder though, because it's not their original property. Like that's got to be super difficult. And it was made for BBC Australia. Like there's got to be a lot of red tape and ties. I know it's Disney,
but they've done that before. They've done that before. You know, in the 90s, they had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the parks. You know, they've done stuff like this before. I mean, you had Indiana Jones and Star Wars long before Disney ever
You're right.
had purchased them. So I mean, it's doable. It's just whether or not there's the willpower to do it. But come on, like it seems so easy. We're like, pay these people whatever they want and prop up a Bluey meet and greet or a little puppet show. Like there's so many easy things you could do. I keep saying the puppet show because that's what's on tour. And we've said this, we're like, if we lived in the States, we would drive to the nearest one and go be a part of that because it looks really fun.
I didn't know this was happening, so now I got to go look.
Oh, yeah. And our kids are so obsessed. It would just be such a fun, family outing. But there it is. There's all new Bluey stuff. One last thing to put on everybody's Disney radar. If you haven't catched a glimpse of this, Disneyland Paris has premiered a new nighttime show. And if you haven't seen any videos of this, I just want to highly recommend this to you. Like, pull open your browser window and search YouTube right now for Main Street Electrical Sky Parade. Yes, you heard that correctly. Main Street Electrical Sky Parade. They are creating, Disneyland Paris has for a couple of years been like using drones in incredible ways. And here they recreate several kind of iconic sequences from the Main Street Electrical Parade in drones. But what is particularly cool about this show is they have added various pyrotechnic elements to the drones. For example, just to tie in our episode well today, that amazing closing sequence of Peter Pan with the golden pirate ship flying over London and sprinkling pixie dust, they recreate that with drones and this sparkling pyrotechnics that float off the back of the boat and dust the Sleeping Beauty castle there in Disneyland Paris. It's really quite spectacular just seeing it on video from a YouTuber. So I can only imagine in person. But I just wanted to throw that out there. I thought that was something really cool that the Disney park put out there just this past week. It is the Main Street Electrical Sky Parade. Well worth 5 minutes of viewing that it is.
That looks incredible. It just looks incredible. Just like the images that I'm seeing right here. I can only imagine what it is in person.
Yeah, they've got like Pete's dragon comes up out of there and like starts breathing, not fire, but like a smoke coming out of it. And I'm like, how? Yeah, it's just really, really cool. You've got to check all this out. So there you go. There is a bit of Disney news and things that we think you ought to check out. Some cool things that Disney is working on. But before we go, JB, I just hope you and your family have a wonderful week. It's about 85 degrees and sunny here where I'm at. Howard, I see you have something on your head.
Got a beanie on because we had a snow day today here in the Nashville area. Moved to the south, hoping that I would retain at least most of the heat from from California. But once a year or every other year, it decides to dump one time all the snow, and we got like 5 or 6 inches, which doesn't seem like a lot for our Indiana brethren. But this, when you got like 2 snowplows for the entire city, and our street is not a priority whatsoever, it's going to take a little bit for them to get us all back onto the road. So I am rocking the beanie today because it's so cold. But my kids had a blast in 5-minute increments. They'd go out for 5-10 minutes, then come back in exclaiming how cold they are. Back outside for 5 to 10 minutes, an hour later, back inside, like crying about how cold it is. Back and forth. And it's really hard as a parent to prepare for this when it only comes once a year. So buying them all of the gear and hats, and it's like, especially like the full bibs of like for snow gear,
snow pants, snow gear.
It's really hard to justify that when you know it's good. And last year there was no snow the entire time that we were here it snowed like once while we were out, and it was just a little bit. It's just really hard to justify spending all that money when you know you're just probably not gonna ever use it, or they're gonna grow out of it before they can actually use it. So I'm trying to stay warm, Eddie. I know that you're not having that same problem with your 80 plus degrees, but some of us got to suffer.
Hey, it got down to 64 degrees last night.
Boo-hoo.
So it was a little chilly. It was a little chilly in the house.
Boo freaking who. That's all I got to say about that. And with that, you've got your weekly dose of Disney nostalgia.
Be sure to subscribe to Honey, We Made a Disney podcast wherever you listen to your other favorite podcasts, and give us a look on YouTube as well.
While you're there, please like or leave a 5-star review and share it with your best friend.
You can also check us out at honeywemade.com, where you can see all of our nostalgic reviews of Disney movies.
Tune in next week as we review 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Thank you for listening, and remember, all the world is made of faith and trust and pixie dust.